Elena's tiny studio smelled of oil and turpentine, the air heavy with the perfume of wet paint. Moonlight filtered through the skylight, spilling silver across canvases that leaned against every wall. They all bore the same face, a man she had never met, yet could never stop painting. High cheekbones, a strong jaw, lips sculpted with a softness that haunted her dreams. His eyes, storm gray, tinged with something darker, stared out of every portrait, capturing her in ways that made her chest ache. Elena didn't know why she painted him. She had tried landscapes, still lives, even abstract swirls of color, but her hand always drifted back to him. Her brushes seemed to betray her, compelled by a force beyond reason. She pressed the heel of her palm to her forehead, smearing a streak of cobalt blue across her skin. "Why you?" she whispered into the silence, as though one of the many painted versions of him might answer. The studio clock ticked past midnight. Her body ached, her eyes burned, but sleep was impossible. When she closed her eyes, she saw him. When she dreamed, she felt him, the warmth of a hand at her waist, lips brushing her ear, a voice murmuring her name though she could never quite remember the sound of it. Tonight was no different. Her latest canvas stood half-finished, the brush strokes urgent, desperate. She hadn't even sketched first. The face emerged almost on its own, as if his features demanded to be remembered. Each stroke pulled her deeper into the trance, her chest tightening as though she were trying to capture more than paint, a memory, a soul. And then, she painted the eyes. They glowed unnaturally under the studio lamp, a shade of crimson gray that seemed alive. Elena froze, brush trembling in her fingers. She had never painted them like this before, not with such depth, such fire. A chill crept across her skin. The air in the studio thickened, heavy with something electric. She set down the brush, her pulse pounding in her ears. And then she heard it. A whisper. Soft. Barely audible. Like the stroke of silk against her name. Elena. She stumbled back, clutching her chest. The voice hadn't come from outside. It hadn't come from her head. It came from the painting. Her breath hitched. "I'm losing it," she murmured, squeezing her eyes shut. Too much caffeine. Too little sleep. When she opened them again, the canvas shimmered. The painted man's chest expanded as if inhaling. His lips parted. Elena gasped, knocking over a jar of brushes as she stumbled back into the wall. And then he stepped out. The canvas rippled like water, and a tall figure emerged from it, pulling free as though breaking through the surface of a dream. He stood in the center of her studio, the air charged around him, shadows clinging to his sharp frame before dispersing into nothing. He was exactly as she painted him. No, more. Dark hair, tousled but elegant. A body sculpted with strength and grace. His suit looked centuries out of place, yet it clung perfectly to his tall, lean form. His skin was pale, luminous in the moonlight. And his eyes, God, his eyes, burned crimson gray, locking onto her with an intensity that rooted her to the spot. Elena couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't look away. Finally, he murmured, his voice deep, velvet smooth, brushing over her like a caress. "After so long, you've called me back." Her lips parted, but no sound came out. He took a step closer, then another. Each movement was measured, graceful, as though he had all the time in the world. Elena pressed against the wall, her heart racing. Who are you?" He tilted his head, studying her with a faint, enigmatic smile. "You know me, Elena. Your soul has never forgotten." Her legs trembled. "I don't." "Yes, you do." He reached her, his presence overwhelming, his scent a heady mix of night air and something richer, like wine, like iron. He raised a hand, stopping just short of her cheek. His fingers hovered inches away, the heat of him making her shiver. "You've painted me for years. With every stroke, you remembered a little more." His gaze softened, though the fire never left it. "I have waited centuries for this moment. For you." Elena shook her head, her breath shallow. "This isn't real." I'm dreaming. I. His fingers brushed her jaw. The touch was feather-light, yet it ignited her nerves as though she'd been starved of it all her life. Her lips parted on a soft gasp. "Does this feel like a dream?" he whispered. Heat coursed through her body. The studio spun. Every instinct screamed danger, yet her heart recognized him. Every beat echoed his presence, as if it had always belonged to him. She should have pulled away. She should have screamed, run, done something. Instead, she whispered, "Who are you?" He leaned closer, his lips near her ear. "My name is Lucian. And once, long ago, I was yours." Her knees buckled, and he caught her effortlessly, his arm wrapping around her waist, holding her as though she were the most fragile and precious thing in existence. Elena's body betrayed her. Instead of recoiling, it melted into his embrace, her cheek brushing against the hard plane of his chest. The sound of his heartbeat was faint, almost too faint. Lucian inhaled, his lips hovering above her hair. "You smell the same," he murmured, his voice tinged with hunger and longing. "The same as the night I lost you." Elena's mind swirled with questions, fear, and something far more dangerous, desire. Because as terrifying as he was, as impossible as this was, every fiber of her being wanted him. And that terrified her more than anything. Chapter 2: The Man from the Canvas. Elena had always believed silence was empty, a void between moments. But the silence that hung in her studio now wasn't empty at all. It was alive, thick with unspoken promises and something far more dangerous, desire. Lucian still held her, his hand firm at her waist, his body close enough that every breath she took brushed against him. He didn't move to release her, and though she knew she should step back, she couldn't. It was as if her body had already chosen before her mind could catch up. Her voice, when it came, was shaky, a whisper dragged from her throat. This can't be real." His crimson-gray eyes searched hers, steady and unyielding. "Reality is not what you think, Elena. You dreamed me before you ever touched a brush. You carried me here." His fingers brushed her wrist, making her pulse leap, in every beat of your heart. The words sent a shiver racing through her. She wanted to deny it, to push him away, but the truth was buried in her marrow. She had dreamed him. Long before she ever painted him, she woke at night with phantom touches, lips she could not see, a name on her tongue she could never remember. Now the name had a face. And that face was standing in front of her. Her throat tightened. "Why me?" Lucian smiled faintly, not mocking, but pained, as if her question was a wound he'd carried for centuries. "Because you are mine. And I am yours. That has never changed." Something about the way he said it, the quiet desperation, the reverence, made her chest ache. But her mind rebelled. She pulled away, stumbling back until she bumped against one of the canvases. No. No, this is insane. People don't just walk out of paintings. Men like you don't, she gestured helplessly. Don't exist. He didn't follow her this time. Instead, he stood very still, watching her with eyes that seemed to glow in the dim light. His voice was low, almost a confession. "You think I don't exist? Touch me again. Tell me then." Her cheeks burned at the memory of his touch, the way her body had betrayed her moments ago. She clenched her fists, torn between fear and a hunger she didn't understand. Lucian took a slow step closer. "Do you want to know why you can't stop painting me? Why you wake up aching for something you can't name?" Her lips parted, but no answer came. He reached into the shadows of his coat, withdrawing something small. A pendant, tarnished with age but still gleaming faintly in the moonlight. A ruby encased in silver, shaped like a teardrop. Elena's breath caught. She had seen it before. Not in life, but in dreams. Always at the edge of her vision, hanging against her chest as lips brushed her throat. Her fingers twitched, aching to touch it. Lucian's gaze softened, as though he knew exactly what was happening inside her. "You wore this when you died in my arms." The words slammed into her like a physical blow. She staggered back, her chest heaving. Stop. But he continued, voice breaking just slightly, I buried it with you. And when you returned, when your soul found flesh again, I swore I would wait. No matter how long it took. Elena's vision blurred, not from disbelief, but from something far more dangerous, recognition. As though, beneath the terror, a part of her remembered. Why are you saying this? Her voice trembled. Why would I die in your arms? Lucian's eyes darkened, the crimson flaring like embers. Because they cursed us. Because our love was forbidden. Because you chose me, even when it meant your end. The studio seemed to tilt around her. She pressed a hand to her temple, trying to breathe. This is madness. I don't remember. Lucian closed the space between them in 2 strides. His hand lifted, hovering by her cheek again, never forcing, only offering. His voice dropped to a whisper, threaded with hunger and sorrow. Then let me remind you. His fingers brushed her skin, and the world fell away. Elena gasped as images crashed into her, not dreams, not fantasies, but memories. A garden bathed in moonlight, her body pressed against his beneath a willow tree. His lips against hers, fierce and desperate. A blade flashing, voices shouting, the heat of blood, his arms holding her as she fell. She tore away with a strangled cry, stumbling into her easel. The canvas toppled, crashing to the floor. Her chest rose and fell in frantic rhythm. She shook her head violently. No. No, this isn't possible. None of this is real. Lucian's jaw tightened, pain flickering through his expression, but he didn't reach for her again. He let the silence stretch, the tension coiled tight between them. Finally, he whispered, your soul remembers, even if your mind does not. That's why you paint me. That's why you dream of me. You are mine, Elena, as I am yours. And nothing can change that. Her breath came shallow, her heart threatening to break through her ribs. She wanted to scream. She wanted to run. And yet, when she met his gaze, something inside her ached with longing so deep it felt older than time itself. Lucian stepped back at last, though his eyes never left hers. Rest tonight. Tomorrow, we will speak of the curse. He turned toward the window. The glass trembled, shadows curling like smoke, and with a swirl of darkness he was gone, leaving only silence and the faint echo of his voice lingering in her bones. Elena collapsed to her knees among her scattered brushes, her hand pressed to her racing heart. She should have been terrified. She should have called someone, screamed, done something. But all she could think of was the heat of his touch, and the way his lips had looked when they whispered her name.